Hey, what's up guys? It's Marf and welcome back to another Asphalt 9 video, and I just got done playing the attack phase of the Clash, which is the Club Wars slash Club Clash thing that Asphalt 9 introduced in this update, and all of the clubs finally got a chance to play it this time around. I know previously it was in some testing phase or something where it was only limited clubs that could take place, but now all the clubs were participating, and well, we just got done with the attack phase, which is supposedly the final phase of, I guess, the first round of the Clash, and I just had some thoughts that I wanted to talk about. This isn't by any means a definitive review of this game mode or whatever, and I really only have a couple of notes I wanted to talk about because I literally just finished and I wanted to get this video out there to try and get some discussion going about this, just so hopefully Game Off can have some time to think about the community's feedback, and hopefully this can be improved, because the Club Wars system, or the concept of club versus club, has been something that we've all wanted for a very, very long time, and I'm very happy it's finally here. But of course there are some issues, but overall I do have to say it's a welcome addition, and it did feel slightly different. There definitely felt like there was more weight behind all of my races, and it felt like my clubmates were depending on me having a good performance. So I think in that sense the team aspect really brought something new to Asphalt 9, and I'm very glad it's here, but hopefully it can be improved for the future. So the first thing I want to talk about is the actual rule set itself, and just the confusion surrounding how this game mode actually works. Now, I am by no means an actual expert on this because I'm still struggling to know the exact rules of the system. I have a basic understanding of what's going on, and obviously I got through it without too much of a hassle, but it definitely took me a while, through each phase, to be like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Where is everything, and how do I go about doing this? So let me just give you a basic rundown. There's 3 phases. The first phase is just to sign up. The second phase is to basically defend your assigned streets, so you can actually occupy any street you want as long as it's not occupied by a clubmate. You get to choose a car, and you set a lap time. Now, for some streets, there are actual requirements that you can hit that'll give you extra points. So, for example, I saw a couple that where if you had a 6-star car, you get extra points, or if you play with a specific car, you'd get extra points. And then you set your lap time, and once you fill up your remaining slots, you can't actually play anymore. So I believe I was assigned only 8 races. So after you play those 8 races and you set your lap times, you can't do anything else. And so you have to rely on your clubmates to do their share of the defense. And once that defense stage is over, you obviously switch to the attack phase, where you attack and try to beat the enemy's times in their neighborhood. So each clash is separated into 2 neighborhoods, one for each club, and obviously one side will defend their each side and then attack the other side for the other club's defense side. Now, in this attack phase, I believe what the objective is, you have to enter through a main street, so the ones on the left side of the screen, and you work your way over. Now, this is important because you have to really coordinate with your clubmates in order to understand who is going with which main street, because you'll see there are some intersections, and if one clubmate intersects you, or you intersect a clubmate, then one of you is going to stop advancing, and so you'll only have one person claiming the rest of the street. I know it kind of doesn't really make sense, and again, this is something that I'll talk about in a bit with the whole confusion thing, but your objective is to basically fill up all of the races from one side to the next, and in this round, I only got 2 main streets that I could go through. So luckily, I was able to get through all of them, or I guess all of the 2 streets. I got through all of the different races. Now, in order to get all the way from the left side to the right side of the screen, you have to go through all of the different races and basically challenge and win them. Now, if the enemy club did not play all of the races or set times in all of the races, you can actually just claim that specific street for free. That'll get you the points for free, and then you can just continue on to the next one. So I found a strategy, I guess, to get the most points is to find the streets or avenues or whatever that were least defended by the enemies, so that you only have to beat 1 or 2 races, but then you can freely claim the rest of the streets that have not been occupied by them. So hopefully that gives you a basic rundown of what in the world is happening with this. And again, the very specifics of everything, like the point calculation and all of that, is still kind of confusing to me, but essentially you defend some streets you're assigned to, and then you attack whatever main street you'd like to in the attack phase, and that's about it. So I think one of the main areas for confusion is just the user interface of this system. Again, once you understand what is happening, it's pretty easy to know what you should be doing, how you should be communicating with your clubmates in order to get the most amount of points and not step on anyone else's turf. But if you'll notice in the actual screen of the races, you can see they're all sort of mapped out in this grid, and well, actually they're not a grid, and I hopefully that they can change it into a grid, because a grid might be easier to read, but you can see it's mapped out in this map, and you go from left to right, as I said before, and you claim the different streets or attack them. Now the problem is that there are different street types, so there are avenues, alleys, and main streets, and I wish if all of this was not so graphically cluttered, it would be an easier time to see what is what street, because there's information that's all over the place. Nothing is really centered in on like what you should be doing. You have to find different pieces of information from different menu systems, or sub-menus, I guess. And one of the main areas of confusion is which streets are occupied and by whom are they occupied by. And they're denoted by these circles and like different, I guess, icons, but they're very similar to each other, so it's hard to know what is actually what. Now, you have the basic colors, and I believe red is just the enemies occupied them, blue is your club is occupied, and white means that it can be occupied by you, but there's different denotions for if that street has been successfully defended or successfully taken, and I think if those things were improved and made more clear, that might be easier for clubs to determine where they should go and who should occupy what. Over the course of the next couple of clashes, this system is going to get easier and easier just by playing it, but I think especially for new players who are getting into this system, or people who don't pay too much attention, like I read through the entire article that Gameloft posted just so I can hopefully get a nice understanding of what's happening, but if you don't read through that article and you just kind of want to play, you are going to be so confused by the tutorial, you're going to be confused by the different icons, and it's going to be hard to find different pieces of information for what to do. And honestly, the club chat system is just too clunky, so I would assume that if you're in a tryhard club, you're probably in a Discord, and that's the best way to communicate with your clubmates. I wish that there was a system within the clash itself that could say, hey, I want to occupy this street, or hey, I want to attack this street. I think a system like that would be very good. So just like simple pings or simple messages that you could send to your clubmates, or different icons that you can put on their screen, I think that would really improve this system a lot, because as of now, besides actual chatting in the chat feature and just using a separate third-party app, there's no real way to communicate with your clubmates based off of what you want to do or what they want to do. So some sort of pinging system like you have in first-person shooters for battle royales, where you can, click a button and then it'll ping it on their map, something like that, where you can ping a race and say, hey, I want to attack that. I think that would be a good system, because it is hard to communicate all of this just through text chat. So besides talking about the rules and the interface, which I assume over time will be upgraded, because that is a type of thing where I understand that if you don't have so much user testing, it is hard to see from the player's perspective what works and what doesn't. So hopefully the user interface can get improved over time, as well as the rule set itself. But something that really needs to be improved, and I don't see improving because Gameloft doesn't usually do something like this, is just the actual cars and races themselves. Unfortunately, the only time in this game where you have a proper one-on-one battle where both racers have the same car and the same chance to do well is in the ESL mobile open races, where you play with the same car and you try to climb the leaderboard. Even in the 1v1 mode that Gameloft introduced, you could have the chances for different cars on different tracks, which again, some cars are better than other cars on certain tracks, and this is the same issue here. Now, there are certain restrictions, like once you use a car in your defense stage, you can't use it again for another defense, but honestly, these rules would have just been completely obsolete if they just introduced a system where if you want to attack or defend a specific race, there is just a set car for that race or track. So you didn't have to worry about car selection, and more importantly, you didn't have to rely on your garage level or the cars that you have or have not unlocked. And that is honestly the most disappointing part of the system, is because let's say an enemy chooses to play on Himalayas and they use a Hennessy Venom F5. Well, unfortunately, if I don't have a Hennessy Venom F5 or something like that, there is no way I'm going to be able to beat them on that track. Now, luckily, I didn't run into this problem, because the races I chose, I made sure I could beat beat them with a different car on. So for example, some races that I played, the enemies used a Lotus Elise, but then I used a top speed focused car to beat them. But you could get into a situation where it is physically impossible to beat an enemy on that race, not because of your skill, but because of the cars you have. And I think that is the most disappointing part of this system. Now, is Gameloft ever going to change something like this? Probably not, because again, their goal is to make these cars so important because that's what you are ultimately spending money on, and I understand that. But this Club Wars, or the Clash as they're now calling it, would be so much better if each race had its specific car, and the only thing determining who is better or who wins that street is who got the better time and who is the most skilled. And again, Gameloft is probably not going to change that, and for the most part it's fine because I believe they match you, or I guess match the different clubs based on garage level. Now of course that's going to be split between your different club mates, and if your club mates are all over the place then it might be unfair for certain people, but at least they are trying to balance it that way. However, I believe that if they did introduce a system where each race had its specific restricted car, that would be a lot better and more skill based. Overall, I definitely enjoyed the Clash, especially on its first iteration. If they improve it over time, I think this could be really fun. I love the idea of club versus club, and I think this was a long time coming. I know a lot of us have been expecting something like this for a while, and especially after all of the delays. And like I said earlier in the video, it gave these races some more gravity to them. It really felt like these races mattered because different people are depending on your results in those races. So it felt like my races actually meant something for once, which is really cool. And again, hopefully they expand this system, hopefully they refine this system. And I think for a first go, it honestly wasn't that bad. I just think if the UI was improved, if the rules were a bit more clear, I think this would be a lot of a better system. But anyway guys, please let me know your thoughts on the Clash in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys later.